Federal Executive Council orders probe of JAMB, NIMASA and other agencies.
The question that FEC and council members were asking is, where was all this money before? So the directive was given that we must call those who were the heads of those agencies and similar ones to account.
Senior civil servants chef strike as federal government pledges to meet their demands.
Ten more judges approved for the Federal High Court.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the transformation of the livestock sector.
Livestock accounts for 1/3 of Nigeria's agricultural GDP, providing income, employment, food, farm, energy, manure, fuel, and transport. According to 2011 National Agricultural Sample Survey, Nigeria is endowed with an estimated 19.5 million cattle, 72.5 million goats, 41.3 million sheep, 7.1 million pigs, and 278,840 camels and 974,499 donkeys, amongst others. Now, making the nation the top most livestock producer in West Africa.
Well, despite the huge and robust population of Nigeria's livestock enterprise, now the majority of livestock in the country is kept by subsistence farmers, and yet the gap between the actual and expected protein intake amongst Nigerians continues to widen. According to data, Lagos alone consumes some 6,000 cows daily.
And now the development of livestock and dairy industry occupies a prime position in the agricultural roadmap of the current administration, which has the intention to develop sustainable livestock and dairy industry. Currently, cattle herdsmen and nomadic trekking very long distances with their cattle in search of pastures and water. Most often than not, experienced herdsmen, farmers, conflicts. This system affects the quality and quantity of milk as well as the beef quality.
However, government is taking proactive steps, as it were, to establish ranches to be planted with high-quality, improved tropical grass varieties and quality water, as well as also pursue aggressively cattle improvement program using artificial insemination, as well as the establishment of clusters of dairy farms, which will then be equipped with milk collection facilities, among others.
Now, attempts by government to reactivate 415 grazing reserves in the country and the creation of new ones had met stiff opposition because of the perceived security threat posed by the presence of herders, especially in the Middle Belt region and the southern parts of the country.
Now, a national conference on the transformation of the Nigerian livestock industry, which is taking place in Abuja, it's one of the creative approaches to finding lasting solutions to the issue the participants of the conference are deliberating on. And of course, these include ways of providing access to land and land tenure security, and how to also address farmers' pastoralists' conflicts, as well as the implications that these have on internal security, as well as, of course, taking a look at grazing reserves and mainstreaming gender issues in livestock production.
Now, for government is now encouraging stakeholders to get involved in keeping ranches. The reason for this approach, the Minister of Agriculture said, is to put this matter before all Nigerians, noting that a country which has at least 45 million hectares of empty land had no business allowing farmers and cattle rearers to fight. Now, few states have already passed the anti-grazing law as a way of putting an end to farmers' herdsmen clashes. But some are calling on government to carve out areas as ranches and provide water, veterinary clinics, schools, amongst others, before making the law.
Now, what are the historic problems of farmers and pastoralist conflicts, and what is the social and economic costs? Now, how do we address the issues of grazing, open grazing that is, and ranching? And then what are the new strategies to tackle the challenges that have reared their heads in recent times? Now, these are some of the questions we'll be posing to our guests in the course of the program. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kieran Umayo, thanking you for joining us on the show this morning, coming to you live from the network service of the NTA. And as the program progresses, we're going to bring you our usual segments. Of course, there will be newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. But before all that, Fatima Omar is here with the day's news. Hello, Fatima.
Hello, Kingsley and Kieran. Always good to have you by my side. Good morning and welcome to the news beat on Good Morning Nigeria. 27 states of the Federation are reeling from the effects of flooding this 2017. Just when people are beginning to think the worst is over, we are being told there is another imminent wave of flooding as Niger and Benin republics are set to release water from their dams to avoid overflowing. This was the focus of a meeting between NEMA, NIMET and other relevant agencies to work out modalities to manage the situation.
We are trying to equip ourselves with all the facility to make sure that we have the necessary information, which are the tools for us to respond.
If it is possible to move people, let them move, because like he also said, which I agree, life, you can't equate life with property.
Meanwhile, as the water levels in rivers Niger and Benue continue to rise and flood more communities in Kogi State, the state governor Yahaya Bello has called for more intervention to mitigate the effects of the disaster.
As from this moment, the people will be moving down to these particular buildings as we are seeing them. I've called on the General of Police and all other security agencies to provide enough security for them in this area. So any moment from now, they'll be moving down here.
Government intervene as much as possible to learn from the lessons learned of 2012 to make sure that the state is taking all the proactive measures that are necessary to protect the people, to safeguard. And we're happy that because of all those measures, we have recorded no loss of life.
Still on flood matters, the Benue State Council of Chiefs has appealed for equitable distribution of relief materials so far donated to internally displaced persons in Benue State. The council, led by the chairman, Tortiv, the 5th Professor James Ayase, made the appeal during a visit to the camp at the new international market, Makurdi.
We really feel this great loss, but our role is to come and see you and continue to pray that the Almighty God does not allow this kind of thing to happen again.
And the federal government has ordered a thorough investigation of the past management officials of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board as well as NIMASA in a deliberate attempt towards recovering the huge public funds allegedly diverted or mismanaged over the years. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, who announced this while briefing journalists after the Federal Executive Council meeting, said shady deals in all other agencies of government are also to be probed in the renewed onslaught against corruption.
The highest amount that JAM has ever remitted into the Consolidated Revenue Fund before this management was 3 million naira. This year, so far, they have done 5 billion. And the Minister of Education reported that they have an additional 3 billion that they're ready to remit, which will take this year's figure alone to 8 billion. Now, they have not increased their charges, they have not increased their fees. So the question that FEC and council members were asking is, where was all this money before? So the directive was given that we must call those who were the heads of those agencies and similar ones to account. And that's the direction that we've been given, and that's what we intend to do. And it's a similar story with other agencies. These are the leakages which we have now come in and we're blocking. And of course, this is the money that in the Consolidated Revenue Fund is now being applied to the projects that are really needed to get the economy moving. That's the money that, that's missing, that really has led us to the position that we're in. Is the grand scale looting that really this administration has come in to address.
Following the intervention of the Minister of Labour and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, the Association of Senior Staff of Nigeria has agreed to temporarily put off their strike notice till Wednesday, 20th September 2017. This is to enable the federal government show good faith by commencing the payment of promotion arrears owed to civil servants in a meeting. The Labour Minister said federal government would do all that is necessary to meet up with the demands of the civil servants and the timeline agreement.
Ministries, departments and agencies, and the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation reported to this meeting that have been cleared and whose payment bill amounts to 1.165 billion naira. Should start to receive credit of payments by Wednesday, 20th September.
The joint health sector unions and the Assembly of Healthcare Professionals have given the federal government a 7-day ultimatum to meet its demand or face an indefinite strike, they tagged Operation Alligator Bite. President of the union, Barbeleyo Moye Joy Joshua, made this known in Abuja.
Areas of the skipping areas to our members, whereas the resident doctors, who were neither a party to the case nor are on the Congress, insisted they should skip on comments and arrears paid to them, while the original beneficiaries, that is the joint health sector union members, are not paid.
10 more judges have been approved for the Federal High Court as a way of helping to reduce the workload for judges of the court. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onagen, announced this in a message to at the opening of the 2017 Annual Conference of Judges of the Federal High Court.
The judiciary remains committed in its responsibility towards the fight to tackle corruption as spearheaded by the federal government. I seize this opportunity to urge all other stakeholders involved in the dispensation of justice to perform their own roles effectively.
My career in this court and my appointment as the Chief Judge has been roundly successful because of the caliber of people on the bench.
Nigeria has been selected to the position of Vice President of the United Nations World Tourism Organization's General Assembly. The selection followed a unanimous acceptance by the organization's Commission for Africa's 60th meeting underway in Chengdu, China.
This has also translated in more active participation in the activities and programs of the UNWTO, greater awareness of Nigeria's tourism potentials, and increased support of the sector by the government. I am very optimistic that this will continue to challenge us to play a more prominent role in the growth of the tourism industry in Nigeria and the sub-region.
Great Prime Minister, he's going to do a great job. I know this is a recognition of Nigeria's prominence and a recognition for the Minister himself as a prominent personality who is acquiring a lot of respect and admiration. When you choose somebody to preside over the General Assembly, you choose a personality that's balanced, wise.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kurian after the break. Good morning.
From 1967 to 1970, Nigeria went through a horrifying civil war. It didn't matter who was wrong or right. Everybody suffered. Those who fought that war say it should never happen again.
So a lot of people will say, but you were leading the first one. Yes, I led the first one. I don't think a second one is necessary. We should have learned from that first one. Otherwise, the dead would have been to no avail. It would all have been in vain.
The words of our elders are full of wisdom.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Dear Nigerians, let's safeguard our lives and properties against flood. Did you know that flood is a natural or man-made disaster that has affected thousands, with many lives lost and properties damaged? Change begins with you and me. Do not build houses along waterways and flood-prone areas. If you live around flood-prone areas, please start considering relocating to avoid losses. Avoid dumping of refuse in gutter and water channels. Frequently clear your drainages and waterways. Always listen to weather forecast on television and radio. Adhere and take seriously early warning alerts from relevant authorities. And in case of emergency, call 0800-2255-6362. Remember, disaster management is everybody's business. This message is from the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. NEMA, for the sake of the distressed.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Nigeria's merchandise trade increases marginally in the second quarter of 2017 and largely over 2016. Plus, equities market holds bearish run. Business News is next with Leah Kaltun Babatunde.
India, Spain and the United States of America were the top export destinations for Nigeria in the second quarter of this year, while China, Belgium, Netherlands and the United States were major import trading partners during the period. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) indicates major traded agricultural products include cashew nuts, sesame seeds, frozen shrimps and prawns, flour and meals of soybeans and ginger. Total trade stood at 5.697 trillion naira in the quarter, rising by 7.7% higher than the value recorded for Q1. Trade balance accordingly stood at a surplus of 506.5 billion naira in Q2 2017 and a trade deficit of 572.12 billion naira in the corresponding quarter last year. Total imports value stood at 2.595 trillion naira in Q2 2017, 13.51% higher than the first quarter and 9.97% higher than the corresponding quarter of 2016. Value of imported agricultural goods was 16.01% higher than the value recorded in the preceding quarter. Total exports value stood at 3.102 trillion naira in the second quarter of 2017, representing an increase of 3.2% over Q1 2017. Agricultural goods export value in the second quarter of 2017 was minus 1.03% than Q1 2017, but 94.05% higher than Q2 2016. Remarkably, raw materials export value increased by 31.8% in Q2 2017 against the level in Q1 2017, but 206.4% higher than Q2 2016. Solid minerals export value in Q2 2017 decreased by 27.58% compared to Q1 2017, but was 122.01% higher than Q2 2016. Against the first quarter, energy goods export value was 117.84% higher, manufactured goods 17% lower, crude oil exports were 2% more, while other oil products were 12.5% more. Now, Nigeria's public debt stocks for both the federal government and the states currently stands at 19.63 trillion naira. A report by the Debt Management Office (DMO) indicates that external debt stock of both tiers is 4.6 trillion naira, while the domestic debt stock of the federal government is 12 trillion naira. The report also reveals that the federal government spent 253.3 billion naira on domestic debt servicing in the second quarter of 2017. Nigeria plans to sell 140.9 billion worth of treasury bills at an auction next week. The Central Bank of Nigeria midweek said it plans to offer 28.12 billion naira of 3 months debt, 23.68 billion naira in 6-month bills, and 89 billion naira in 1-year notes using the Dutch auction system on September 21. And settlement will be made next day after the auction. The Central Bank issues treasury bills twice a month to help the government fund its budget deficit, support commercial lenders in managing liquidity, and curb inflation. Nigeria has a series of debt issues lined up this year, including a 100 billion naira debut domestic sukuk it is marketing to fund infrastructure projects. An estimated $3.9 trillion will be required to address Nigeria's infrastructure deficit. Now, finally, the Nigerian Stock Exchange ended midweek session on a positive note, halting a 3-day negative trend to see the all-share index advance marginally by 0.19%. Now, next is a graphic summary. That wraps up business news for this hour. Thank you for watching. My name is Leah Katun. Baba Tunde.
Thank you very much, Leah Katun Babatunde, for the business package. Next for us now, we go to the front pages of some of today's newspapers to check out the headlines.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Altoyabi, is in the studio, as always. Bayo, good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Kinsley.
Good to see you.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin by going straight to the front page of the Nigerian Pilot to check out the headlines from top to bottom. Immediately below the nameplate of the Nigerian Pilot says Lagos bans interstate buses and vehicles along Ikorodu Road. That's on page 5 in greater detail. Another group threatens total shutdown of hospitals. Details on page 6. The lead story says, with a double-decker headline, SARS behind kidnappings and armed robberies in Rivers, and that story is attributed to Wike, who is governor of Rivers. The story is in greater detail on page 5. Below the photograph is a headline, Kogi again, strike looms as workers issue 7-day notice and demand payments of salary arrears, and lawmaker move to stop action. Now, you have a window of other headlines there. Judiciary committed to fighting corruption. That's according to the CJN. Nnamdi Kanu shuns Southeast Governors Meeting. And convicted soldiers drag army before presidential probe panel. And Southeast Group blames Kanu and IPOB over face-off with military. On page 6, in greater detail, is a story headline: Bail is free campaign to rid police of corruption. That's according to the Inspector General of Police.
Yes, all right, to the This Day newspaper for today. Above the nameplate, NNPC to shut down refineries for rehabilitation, inaugurates committees, with a rider receives 28 EOLs for private sector funding of repairs. The story is on page 8. And then court freezes Zamfara state accounts in 20 banks. Page 48 of This Day. And now below the nameplate we have, well, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, emerging Vice President of World Tourism Body. The details will be found on the page 51. And now the lead story here. Northern governors embark on town hall meetings on restructuring. All right, it continued on page 8. That's where we get the details of that. And then just beside the photograph, which of course has the Minister of Women Affairs, Aisha Al-Hassan, with the Vice President, Yemi Oshibajo. Now on the other side of the photograph, you see stories there. APC, PDP, ACF, others call for calm, restraint in the southeast. With the rider, police sergeant killed, 32 IPOB members arrested in Rivers. Kano Council's meeting with governors, curfew extended in Abia. We'll have that story on page 8 of This Day. And now, below the photograph, in another blow to patients, health workers to embark on strike September 20. The more details will be is on page 48. And then, oh well, woman of the moment I've told you about her as the Minister of Women Affairs there. Bayo.
Yes. Well, let's start with the reactions that has come from the fracas that has happened between IPOB and the security agencies. Governor Rochas Okorocha says agitation for a sovereign republic in Southeast is childish. He says that IPOB and as an agitation group has a bad caption talking of sovereignty within a sovereign nation or secession. And he has advised that no Igbo person or man is in support of secession. So we must stand to address it before it becomes a national problem. He said for us as leaders, it will be insane to think that IPOB leader will ask us to follow him, and we will do so. Also, the All Progressive Congress has called for restraint. It says security must conduct their constitutional role in accordance with rules of engagement. Bolaji Abdullahi, who is the spokesperson, expressed regret over the assault of journalists. He says citizens, social critics, and media influencers must be mindful of their utterances so as not to aggravate the situation. The People's Democratic Party also has sued for caution and restraint. The spokesman, Dayo Adeyeye, says at a time like this, tempers seem to be flaring. Dialogue rather than violence is a viable option. He said Nigeria can ill afford anarchy now. Governor Okeze Ikpeazu met with traditional rulers in the Imo states, and the curfew has now been extended to the commercial city of Aba. Governors of the Southeast are expected to meet on Friday. Now, talking about reactions, a group in Kano yesterday called on its people to exercise restraint and to resist any provocation from the actions coming from the Southeast. Addressing journalists at Kano Press Center, spokesperson Abdulaziz Suleiman said people should be calm and resist temptation to taking laws into their own hands. Meanwhile, the northern governors have met with traditional rulers, and they have set up a technical committee to comprise of 5 governors and traditional rulers, about 7 of them, to conduct town hall meetings to reach a consensus from the region about the position of the restructuring. It is expected by the end of October they will now converge and report to a larger body of the Northern Governors Forum and traditional rulers before the position on restructuring will be taken. But meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council sat yesterday, and like the photographs have indicated, the Minister of Women Affairs was also in attendance. However, at the end of the meeting, the Minister of Finance in the briefing drew attention to disparity in remittances from 2 federal agencies, the Joint Admission Matriculation Board and the Nigerian Maritime Services Agency. The Minister of Finance said JAMB remitted 5 billion to government this year and is waiting to remit 3 other billion anytime from now. The past administration, the maximum they ever remitted was just 3 million, and so there is need to look in. With NIMASA, currently for 2016, they remitted 24 billion to federal government coffers, while in 2015, the NIMASA remitted just 4.9 billion. This disparity is alarming, and therefore government is looking at it. But the NNPC says that 3 of the refineries of the 4 we have will be closed down for what they describe as nameplate capacities turnaround. This means that the refineries will be as good as new by the time they finish. It is expected that by 2019, Nigeria will stop importing fuel. 8 committees have been set up, and the good news is that all the turnaround maintenance are to be conducted from operational profits of the NNPC.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. Let's go to the front page of the Daily Trust. You already talked about the late story, which is JAMB and the NIMASA facing probe over alleged massive corruption. And just above that, and below the nameplate, it says measles. Millions of children at risk as 33 states yet to pay funds. And the other story there says IPOB members kill police sergeant in Rivers. Now, below the photograph showing members of the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday, the following headlines. Northern Committee on Restructuring begins sitting in Kaduna. And low turnout scuttles PDP new BOT scribe poll. And controversy trace concession of Lagos and Abuja airports. That's in greater detail on page 13. And very quickly, we'll take a look at also at the front page of the Punch newspaper. Maybe you can see that on the, if we can see that on the screen right away, we'll take a look at the headlines there trending on the front page of the Punch newspaper. All right, you can see you see the stories there that Bayo already discussed. They are also there. Now, there's a story there on the economy. It says exit from recession will help bring down inflation. That's attributed to the CBN governor, Emefiele. Federal government, LNG, Berger signed 120 billion naira Borni road contract. And northern governors and monarchs plan public hearings on restructuring. Now, the lead stories, of course, is on IPOB, Kano, Southeast, as well as matters arising therefrom. Let's go quickly to other headlines below the photographs that you are seeing there. Now, Kogi Assembly raises panel to stop another strike, and Melaye appeals against judgment on recall process. That's on page 10. And the other story that we read earlier about the allegation that SAS, that is the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, being behind the kidnappings and robberies in Rivers, according to the allegation by Rivers Governor Wike.
All right, leadership newspaper now, below the nameplate of leadership newspaper as well. The story on the NNPC beginning rehabilitation of the 3 refineries there for 2019 target. And now fraud, federal government probe of, well, JAMB, the master boss is what we've read that in other newspapers. It's on page 4 of the leadership. And then Niger, Kogi, Abia, Bayelsa, others face imminent flooding. These are some of the states, you know, that were predicted that are going to have floods this year. And then 9 banks make 59.6 billion naira from account maintenance e-transactions on page 25. And then the main headline, stop beating war drums. Northern governors and leaders tell Nigerians. The rider or riders meet over restructuring in Kaduna, appeal for calm over IPOB, reiterate commitment to Nigeria's unity. And the photograph there is that of the Minister of Information and Culture and other staff of the ministry, especially the tourism agencies who are in China, Chengdu, China, where he has become the vice president of the World Tourism Organization. And besides that story, we have panic grips patients as health workers give federal government 7-day ultimatum, with the resident doctors meeting deadlocked. That's on page 7 of leadership. Mr. Boy, at this point, well,
very quickly,
yes.
just that the Minister for Labour and Employment and Minister of Health are struggling to negotiate with the resident doctors. Joint health sector workers have also given a deadline for another strike by June 20. You know, we talked about this mirror image strategy about the union. But however, 7 states and all others who are inhabiting the floodplains of River Niger and Benue must be alert about flood. NEMA has warned that flood is coming, and what is required now is for all of them to make emergency, because River Niger, from its 3,000 kilometers of travel from Futajalons to the sea, has 13 tributaries, and all of them are entering into River Niger. And at the end of the day, it is going to all end up in Nigeria. Benue also has 6 tributaries, 3 in Cameroon. There's 1 dam in Cameroon. There's no dam in Nigeria on River Benue. And 3 major rivers, Gongola, Taraba, and Katsina Ala, are emptying into Benue. And when Benue joins Niger at Lokoja, it is even larger at Lokoja than Niger.
I would like to thank you. Thank you for your analysis this morning. Bayo Teyabi, newspaper reviewer. We'll see you again tomorrow. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, let's take a break now. We'll be back in a moment.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Jennifer, don't tell me you're still looking for chapters for your expo.
What expo? I'm reading to pass.
Yeah, right.
I beg, we all know even if you study, the surest way to graduate in this school now to do a rejo.
Or better still, we hook the lecturers, Abby.
No, that's a thing of the past. I would not get a certificate I cannot defend. I would not be a burden to the nation or the society by fixing or buying certificates that does not add value to my life. This is the era of change, and change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Alright, you're welcome back, but if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As we indicated, we're taking a look today at how to boost livestock production in the country against the background of recent unsavory occurrences. But let's join our correspondent, Salihu Abdullahi, who has a background there as a prompt for our discussion this morning.
Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Abuja, in June 2016 released a census of livestock in the country conducted in 2011. It indicated that Nigeria was endowed with an estimated 19.5 million cattle, 72.5 million goats, 41.3 million sheep, 7.1 million pigs, and 28,000 camels, 145 million chickens, 11.6 million ducks, 1.2 million turkeys, and 974,499 donkeys. The statistics shows that Nigeria is number 1 in livestock in Africa. It accounts for only 5.1% of national gross domestic product, making Nigeria a net importer of protein food of animal origin. During the post-colonial period in Nigeria, both federal governments and regional governments, as part of their strategies to encourage the dairy industry development, established several dairy processing plants across the country. And by 1975, after successfully upgrading the first herd of indigenous cattle, 69 cows then were able to produce about 200,000 liters of milk annually. In what seems like the zeal to follow this initiative, after several decades it went into extinction. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Abuja, in a policy statement in June 2006, called for the abandonment of the nomadic way of raising cattle in Nigeria, adding that steps were being taken to ensure quality and quantity of milk and beef. In addition, he says that steps have been taken for the establishment of ranches to be planted with imported high-quality improved tropical grass varieties, provide irrigation for all-year commercial feed production, cattle improvement program via artificial insemination, establishment of clusters of dairy farms to be equipped with collection facilities and capacity building for dairy farmers. As laudable as this seems to be in adding value to the nation's agriculture, it is yet to be implemented. This is despite the fact that about 11 states had keyed into the initiatives and provided 55,000 hectares of land for the establishment of ranches to curtail the movement of the cattle, since such movement often result in the destruction of crops and clashes between the herdsmen and the farmers. There is also another school of thought by some stakeholders who prefer to explore Nigeria's traditional grazing routes and reserves. The debate is still ongoing even at the National Assembly. The Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, the umbrella body of the Fulani herdsmen, at a public hearing on perennial clashes between herdsmen and farmers organized by the Senate Joint Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, National Security and Intelligence, suggested that stakeholders should rather demarcate routes and cattle resting points with support from technical and financial partners. At the ongoing conference to brainstorm on how to transform the livestock industry to the benefit of the economy, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Abuja, again said Nigeria needs to move away from the traditional and nomadic method of rearing cattle, which does not bring out the best from the cattle, and embrace modern methods of livestock production. He expressed the determination of government to support the establishment of ranches. Incessant farmers and herdsmen clashes still persist and is a source of serious concern. In view of this, discussions on Good Morning Nigeria today are expected to provide solutions on how to put an end to farmers' herdsmen clashes so as to create an enabling environment for livestock production in the country.
Thank you very much, Salih Abdullahi, for that elaborate background report. Now we have guests with us here in the studios as well as at our Cardinal Network Center to discuss this issue in greater detail. First, we'd like to welcome a guest we've had on this program in the past, Professor Garba Sharabutu. He is Provost of the College of Animal Health and Production Technology at VOM. That's in Plateau State. Professor Sharabutu, a pleasure you're with us on Good Morning Nigeria again.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. Also here with us is Ta Uko. Ta Uko, of course, is a very well-known face in cultural matters. He's artistic director and CEO of the National Arts Theatre as well as the National Troupe. Ta Uko, a pleasure that you're with us on the program.
Thank you, comrade.
Okay, now it's along with others are providing cultural support for the conference that is ongoing with regard to the transformation of the agriculture, so of the livestock sub-sector. And also here with us in the studios is Honorable Mohammed Mongudong, is chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture. Honorable Mongudong, a pleasure that you're with us on the program.
Thank you.
Welcome. And also we have from Kaduna, joining us is Shadrach Madlian. He is a farmer. Shadrach, good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Morning, nice to be here.
Gentlemen, we are talking about the transformation of a very important sector, a subsector in the entire agricultural sector, which is livestock. Now, we've had a number of issues concerning pastoral, industry in this country, which has affected almost all parts of the country with respect to clashes and all of that. Now, looking at the importance of livestock in the agricultural sector, what should we be talking about at this level of our development? And I'd like to begin with Professor Shariputu. Actually, let's begin with you.
Well, thank you very much, Kirian. The issue of livestock has been, its crisis has been a long-standing issue in this country, despite the fact that there has been a cordial relationship between the livestock farmer as well as the agrarian farmer. But I think the situation now calls for some very, very pertinent questions. And the first question we have to ask, based on comments that are coming as a result of this crisis, is, do we really need livestock in this country? Are livestock really important? And what is the place of livestock in any policy that the government has been able to address? Of recent, the Honorable Minister for Agriculture has come up with a policy, as a Nigerian policy, to say that we must try and see what we can do to establish ranches. Now, we need to understand the definition of what a ranch actually is, and then to see whether we have the capacity to actually move our livestock system to the ranching system that we have. Currently, an understanding of our livestock system here is the extensive system, the non-productive system, the cultural system, a system where you are rearing livestock, not necessarily for the business aspect of it. And I think the policy is geared towards transforming, that is moving livestock from the cultural system into a business where we'll be able to take care of these animals in order to enhance their productivity. Now, given the breed, the technical expertise, and the facilities that are available now, we will not be able to achieve that. And the cultural and religious injection that has been given to the concept of livestock rearing in this country will not really take us anywhere. We need to look at livestock as a national business, despite the fact that individuals run it. So we should be able to provide all the necessary incentive in terms of training, in terms of facilities, for us to be able to transform the livestock. And that is the essence of this program. To look at those that are rearing the livestock, to look at what are the changes we are going to bring in their lifestyle, as well as the changes we are going to bring in the breeds of livestock and the technicalities.
You mentioned the cultural system.
Yes.
And do you think that the culture really behind the practice of livestock rearing in this country can effectively get a change, given the fact that those who are directly involved are herdsmen who have little or no education?
You see, let me say this. I went to the motor park and I wanted to enter a vehicle, and I saw a Fulani man in front of the wheel. And I said, there is a change. So if individuals can decide to change, I see no reason why we cannot invest on them to be able to change the system of rearing these animals. They can change, because you see, it's a matter of time. As the land gets smaller, as people begin to develop educationally, definitely there will be a change in the system of livestock. Before now, that's not it. Before now, virtually 100% of the livestock system has been in the hands of the Fulani. But there are non-Fulani people that are now taking into livestock production. And I think that is where the challenge lies on all Nigerians. Nobody says that it is only the typical Fulani man that will rear livestock. Everybody has a right to rear livestock. We have people rearing goat. If you go to the south, there is the Muturu breed, and the Igbos rear livestock. The people in the middle belt, the Angas people, the Gemai people, they all rear livestock. If you go to the northeast, you find the Kanuri people, the Shua Arabs, they rear livestock. So it is not something that is only invested as a right to the Fulani people. So as you do that, but the issue there is that it is because of the unproductive nature and the non-profit nature of the cattle rearing system that is making people to shy away from it and leaving it permanently into the hands of the typical Fulani.
All right, Professor Sharabutu, thank you very much. Again, we'll come back to our guests who are here with us in the Abuja studios. Let's go over to Kaduna, where we are introduced Shadrach Madlion. Shadrach, of course, you listened to the opening salvo by Professor Sharabutu. Let's also have your opening comments with regard to what we need to do to transform livestock production in this country from its current near subsistence level, which is all tied up with all kinds of social and cultural issues.
Well, I think this is a very is a wake-up call. The day you wake up becomes your morning. The statistics that were just rolled out at the opening speech here, being conducted, I intend to differ because when you take a statistics of the number of livestock that you have in a country, then you should also tell Nigerians the consumption rate of those livestock. 211 trucks of cows leaves Megeteri, Miadua to Lagos every single week, and nothing comes back. Now, Ibadan, Dugbe, Bodija consumes 4,218 goats. The second point of livestock consumption is Port Harcourt, Enugu, Artisan, and a place called Okunano and Emene. These are the hubs that holds the livestock, and then that takes care of the southeast. The ratio in which livestock is consumed in Nigeria is not the same ratio in which the production, the way it's been done. We don't have any program on artificial inseminations. We don't have any policy on increasing, bringing a breed that will be compatible to business development, to attract, to make it bankable to livestock here. There are no national policy to replace the aging livestock farmers with young ones, with science and technology put to it, so that you can compete with your neighbors, like in Addis Ababa, in Nairobi, in Netherlands. When we look at these issues here, I think we in most cases want to sweep issues under the carpet. As I speak with you, what has brought in a lot of communal clashes in Nigeria today is livestock looking for greener pasture. A cow will trek from Sokoto to Umahia, and you expect that same cow to give you the good quality of meat and milk. It's not possible. That's why our breeds here are the worst looking cows in the world. The poverty triangle of our cow will not give you the required beef of the same kind of cows. Are you talking about the Frisian, the Simmental, the Brahman of other that comes in from other places here? But we have the best environment to grow livestock if we're serious about it here. What are the things that we've done that are very, very wrong? We have left livestock production culturally to a particular set of people. But again, there has not been any effort being done to do what I call one community, one development on livestock programs, streamlining it to policy. None has been done here. in our academic institutions and where we chunk out people every day, you will ask me what are the relationship between the research institutions and the livestock, and the livestock farmer, and to development, to getting the program, put to them, and it should be reviewed. When you look at the whole thing here, it's just like we're doing the same thing and expect new results. So this is the situation as it is here. What do we need to do? We need to totally overhaul the entire whole livestock activities. The Nigerians do not have enough livestock for the citizens here. 87% of the livestock Nigeria consumes, especially cattle, goats, belongs to our neighbors, and that's why the biggest cattle markets are here in Nigeria because of our population. Megeteri, Miadua, Gujungu market, and Gashua. If it wasn't the crisis of the northeast here, the biggest cattle market in the entire whole of Africa is in Gashua, and yet we tell ourselves that we have enough livestock. That is not true. The day our neighbors refuse to bring in these livestock to us here, we probably will eat our domestic, will eat our cats and our dogs.
Thank you very much. Shadrach, thanks a lot. It's not yet time to descend on 404. We still hope serious points that you have raised. Again, we'll come back to you, Shadrach, in the course of the conversation.
Yes, I was going to ask Mohammed Tahir Munguno to come in here, as the chairman House Committee on Agriculture. You've listened to the other panelists, who have had their opening submission with respect to this conversation this morning. So what's your take on the way forward?
Well, I fully associate myself with the submissions made by the previous speakers. What I want to add is that because of the fact that the way and manner we do our livestock production is at subsistence level, and as a result of that, even our dairy production compared to other countries is very low. Because, for example, if you look at in Saudi Arabia, cows produce about 30 to 40 liters of milk per cow per day, but Nigerian cow produces only 1 liter of milk per cow per day. This is because of the fact that we didn't introduce modern technological practice in our livestock production. So because of that, there is the need for us to introduce modern livestock production, not only for the purpose of breeding good cows, but also for the purpose of getting good quality milk, and also milk that will adequately be available for Nigerians. For example, Saudi Arabia produces about 4.7 million liters of milk per day, but in Nigeria is not possible because our cows produces only 1 liter of milk per cow per day. So there is a need for us to fund our research institutes very well. For example, the Veterinary Research Institute in VOM, the National Animal Production Research Institute, and the colleges that the Animal Health Production Technology College is just the two colleges that are devoted to animal production. Fund them very well so that we now engage in modern way of rearing animals, and also the outcome of our research institute should also be disseminated to the farmers for the purpose of our farmers taking it. For example, in the National Animal Production Research Institute, since its establishment, they only succeeded in coming out with Chica Brown, one breed, Chica Brown, and since then there was no any other research outcome that we are able to come out with. So if we fund them very well, I think we are going to get very good outcomes.
Now, Honorable, sorry, you mentioned this issue of the Research Institute.
Yes.
But I'm aware that there are other research findings from those institutes, though, that have not been really, brought to the fore with respect to ensuring that these findings are followed up, for adaptation. Because the Chika Brown you talked about, they have brought that, but where is the Chika Brown? Is it being promoted? Farmers, livestock farmers, into Chika Brown? What I'm asking, why I wanted to look into this properly is because it's your area as a chairman of that committee. Yes. So now, how do we now ensure that the research findings in those institutes you mentioned can be translated into practical reality so that farmers can get using them?
Yes, I think the only way we can do that is by embarking upon massive sensitization of the public and also enlightenment of the public about the research outcomes, and also calling upon commercial concerns to come and uptake these research findings. Because once we allow it to lie fallow in the shelves, then it is of no use to Nigerians. So there is need one to embark upon massive enlightenment of the members of the public, particularly people that are interested in livestock farming, so that they can take it off and then upscale it to commercial production. We should not allow it to just lie fallow in the shelves.
All right, Honorable Mongono, thank you very much. Again, we'll come back to you. Now let's bring in Ta Uko, CEO of the National Arts Theatre, as well as Artistic Director of the National Troupe. What is the cultural perspective to the looming transformation or proposed transformation of the livestock production system of the country?
Well, my own understanding of the entire scientific process of livestock production is to have a holistic approach to agriculture. Agriculture has both the crop agriculture and livestock. Nigeria, in terms of policy formulation, has for decades neglected livestock production. We have fertilizer blending plants, we have tractors, we have extension services, we have all inputs making crop production 99% of the precondition for sustainability of cultures of Nigeria. And what did we do with the beef content, the protein content of Nigeria's sustainability of the household, totally neglected in the hands of the cultural sector of livelihoods of the pastoralist herders, in Nigeria specifically the Fulani. So is state investment and neglect of a holistic approach to understanding agriculture that has led to this lacuna. Now the important thing is that within the period of this regime, we are going back to basics. You cannot treat agriculture without water resources. Look at the flood plains we are having now, the deluge of flood from predictably from River Niger, River Benue. Why haven't we used science? Satellite technology. Nigeria has about 80 million hectares of arable land. Only 30% are under cultivation. And then who cultivates it? It's primitive hoes, agriculture. We have not even modernized crop agriculture. So to blame the nomadic Fulani or herders for using primitive means of sustainability is also an indictment on crop agriculture. We're still primitive in hoes. So what do we need to do? A total value chain. A total value chain of looking at what is the relationship between water conservation, little dams along the river Niger and River Benue trough. Throughout the year there is water. A lot of the land mass in this area can be grown into controlled grazing areas where new protein hybrids of grass can be grown so that the nomads themselves stop roaming from one end of Nigeria to the other. So one, I'm happy that there is an approach now to state policy. Specifically, myself and the National Orientation Agency, we're working on our program called the Green Grass, Sharing the Green Grass. We've been at it for 4 years with an American NGO called Search for Common Ground. And in 9 local governments, in 35 communities, in Plateau, Nasarawa, and Kaduna states, we've been able to get the peasants and the Fulani herdsmen to have a working agreement to live together and share the green grass. But that's not the solution. The ranching solution can only become a formidable working model when culture is applied in a sustainable and scientific manner. Why have we not used the Space Research Institute to tell us those swaths of land like Ladoga and Kwa? There's a space there that has been since the 70s devoted to grazing reserve. But it's a sesefly prone space. So the farmers run away from the sesefly, the herders run away from the sesefly, and the grass just grows tall and tall and taller. Now nobody uses that space. Go into that space, get rid of the sesefly and turn it into grazing controlled areas. Ethiopia, for instance, is a good example for Nigeria's comparative advantage. In fact, in the going conference, we were to have an Ethiopian input, but the period coincided with their national New Year festival, which is 11th of September. So we hope to bring specialists from Ethiopia to share their experience with us, because it has the largest number of nomadic herders in Africa. And Ethiopia has been able to cultivate these people and integrate them into a cultural sustainability science of modern agribusiness. Agriculture must be seen as business.
Now Tauko, you've spoken well of the need to apply science to this, because
in a cultural sustainability way.
Exactly, but we are also talking about the practical reality, because you see, some of the things that you have raised require that you know, we should go back to the very beginning and begin to reformulate or what we can do to perhaps inculcate the cultural aspect of it, yet apply science to make it a functional and developed subsector in the agricultural sector. Now, what I want to ask you is this: what should be the step, the conference that is on at the moment? What should be the agenda? What is the agenda of that conference? Yes.
From the National Theatre National Troupe, the idea is to get our cultural workers into the villages to work with government persons in agriculture, water resources, to educate our people in simple playlets, drama, mobilizing the people. In Cuba, they use biotechnology to sustain ranches in very small portions. But the people must understand that it benefits them. No Fulani wants to roam Nigeria forever. No, if you just rely on beef protein that comes from goats, how many goats will you slaughter for a festival like Obi of Onitsha's Ofala or New Yam Festival? The whole goats in your village will be wiped out. But if you have 3 good, 4 healthy cows, you take care of. That's why you have Obuefi. Have you heard of Obu chicken? So, chicken. Or Obu chicken or goats. You don't have that. So I am saying that culturally, Nigerian cultural workers at the grassroots level must educate our people to understand this. There is a dysfunction, there is a disconnect between cultural work and sustainability of Nigerians. Each ministry operates as if they are in heaven on their own. Water resources, Ministry of Culture and Information, Ministry of Health, satellite, even trypanosomiasis, sleeping sickness is a problem. In these areas where cattle breeders exist, use our cultural workers to go and explain to our people. If we mobilize and get people to understand that it's in their own interest, if you create a grazing space and the Fulani herders are there and their children can go to school, anything to treat bovine diseases, vet point, police security, why would a Fulani want to roam around?
All right.
The one you saw riding, driving his car.
At the wheel, so that's
yes.
talked about.
So transformation, scientific transformation.
Yeah, Tauko, thanks a lot. There are a number of points that you have raised. I mean, you're talking about extension services, how to reform extension services, leveraging on our culture. Maybe that's a matter probably we'll come to later on in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in again Professor Garba Sharabutu. Professor Sharabutu, do we, at the moment, have a clear conceptualization of where we want the livestock industry to be in the country, and therefore a proper mapping of stakeholders and stakeholders' interests and what the various responsibilities would or should be?
Yeah, we definitely have. And I'm happy to announce that already this conference is beginning to address and bring up very good models. The papers presented yesterday were very perfect, and the roles of individual organizations like culture is being defined. What we are trying to do is to copy a model that was presented yesterday to say, look, do we even have the breeding stock? The breeding stock that can actually sustain itself, where it provides employment, it feeds the animal you have, and begin to give us the product. Now, the first line of action is actually to develop a good breed, and elite breeders for us to be able to distribute. This is not the first time it started. It started sometimes in Mokwa. You remember the Mokwa Cattle Ranch. You remember that these were organizations that were set up actually by the Germans. But eventually, when it came to us, it collapsed. So a review of what they have been able to do has been presented to us. We intend to have good breeds, elite breeds, for us to be able to distribute, because we cannot rely on the current breed of animals we have. Now, be that as it may, and that brings in the issue of these research institutes that the Honorable is talking about. You see, in this country, we have, under the care of the agricultural research system, we have 15 agricultural research institutes. 2 are dedicated to livestock. Now, each of the agricultural research institutes, they are mainly product-based. They are only mainly crop-based. You have the ones for cereals, you have the root crop, and in each of these institutes, you find 2 yearly, 10, or maybe the interval of 10 years, you find new varieties actually coming up. You cannot say that about the livestock sector.
Why?
That is because the funding has been a problem, and research in livestock takes a good number of years. It takes about 200 years for you to be able to actually come up with something you can say. Most of these animals that we claim we go and bring, is it the Brahman, is it the Simmental, all these things are products of long-term research. Our research has been intermittent. You bring one leadership today, he cuts up and begins to think of bringing another different thing. That is one. Secondly, the issue of extension service that he's trying to talk about. You see, extension is a specialized area. But unfortunately, as good as the intention of this government is in order to extend agricultural productivity and technology to the adopters, that is to the farmers, the funding is not there. Like, for example, now I can tell you, most of the colleges of agriculture now are underdeveloped. Most of their infrastructure have come down. I now produce students that do not even know how to milk animals because the funding is not there. They have not seen milking machine. We produce even agrarians in agricultural technology that do not have tractors right on. And each time we go to the government to say, look, we have a problem. It's like the attention of the government is shifted towards the universities. Let the universities have it. But universities don't really train extension officers because most of the degree holders prefer to sit in the office. The people that are the real technologies of revolution are produced by the colleges of agriculture that have been neglected. So whichever way you want to look at it, you produce the breeders, and then these breeders must be taken to the public, and then let individuals purchase them, let them establish their own farms. I think this is the model we are trying to...
Professor, to what extent is funding, inhibiting the extent to which these institutes, could go carrying out their research? Because a lot has been said about this issue of no financing for certain things that are core to the objective or responsibility of some of these institutes.
In fact, in the agricultural sector, we are not talking about just the amount, but the nature of releases. If you release capital grant to a research institute that is agricultural in September, you expect that between January to this date, he will not do anything. And then the farming season has already gone, then you release money. What is he going to do with it? So it's not just the amount, but it has to do with the timing of the release. And then you don't budget for agriculture and say by December everything is wiped up, because it's not going to happen. The research will stop there. And then you go back to the drawing board again and begin to say, let's wait for another September before we continue the research. The process is cut. So it is a very, very serious problem, because if you look at it technically, we have the people that have the technical know-how. But even our technical know-how is concentrated only on one section. Like, for example, if you really want to stop the issue of farmers-herders clash, the establishment of some of these grazing reserves and giving them real structures that are there must be there. Now, I don't think the Honorable is here. He may like to confirm or disprove what I'm saying. We have established grazing reserve that government intervene, but I don't think that there is any specific budget that is targeted towards Lata, a grazing. I mean, anyone that is targeted towards Badegana, anyone that is targeted towards Wase. The budgetary provisions are superfluous. He say we budget for establishment of grasses. Where? So you must look at some of these grazing reserves individually. The state government also, let us look at their budget. Let us really investigate their budget and see whether, especially for those of us that are from the northern part of this country, we want to see which state government has decided to take livestock production, bring up a model to say, look, this year I want to increase livestock production from this level to this level.
All right, Professor Sharabutu, you just touched on a point that we're going to get into in greater detail once we return from this short break.
Another edition of TV Guide magazine is out with revealing accounts of trending stories. With the dwindling oil revenue, he says there is no reason to worry.
We strongly believe that culture is Nigerians' new oil, and we're going to show that by creating wealth, our art and culture will be a statement for all of us.
Our cover story is on Otumba Olusegun Munchewe, Director General, National Council for Arts and Culture. For upcoming TV presenters, Elegant Elizabeth Banu tells you what it takes. A peep into the activities of the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, a mandate being fulfilled. A trip to the Yankari Games Reserve and Safari in Bauchi State brings you closer to nature. And the Oshun Oshogbo Festival, our culture, our pride. Professor Adiku, the Vice-Chancellor, University of Abuja, tells us what it means to manage a university, plus our regular features, star profile, media issues, relationships, young minds, entertainment, sports, and lots more. Pick your copy now at the vendors or at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
Welcome back, but if you just joined us, I said good morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have our three guests here with us in the Abuja studios and Shadrach Madleon at our Kaduna Network Center. We're going over to him now. Shadrach, of course, you've listened to the other guests and their perspectives. Just before we return again to stakeholder responsibility that Professor Sharabutu was talking about, in particular the role of state governments and others in the transformation of the livestock subsector, let's get your own take, what we need to do. One of the points that Professor Sharabutu talked about was that for us to begin to work on this, we need a new breed of livestock, particularly cattle. Of course, we know that there are other animals that are captured under the livestock. In addition to that, what else are your thoughts with regard to the issues or factors that we need to take into serious consideration if we are to make any headway in revitalizing our livestock subsector?
About 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the United States of America came to Niger State to pick up a breed of goat which they call Lucy. It was collected from Mokwa. The Mokwa short breed of goat has one of the richest milk in the world that could be used in treating cancer patients. those who've got fire burns and the rest here. Now, this breed, they took 4, 2 female and 3 buck to California. And you will begin to ask, how come people outside seems to know much better of what we have than we that are in the country? Well, the problem is that we pretend to be working, whereas we're not working. We have 14,000 mouths that joins us every single day. By 6 o'clock this morning to 6 o'clock in the evening here, we have 14,000 babies that are born into this country, adding to our population. You will ask, there are no provisions for us to come up with a formidable policy to food security. Just like the same way our silos are empty, so is it that we don't have our own livestock population that we can say this is where they are. Are you going to count the white Fulani that is trekking from Kebbi to go to Uboka in Enugu State? Are you going to count the Sokoto or Balani, that the crisis in the northeast had depleted the ram? This festive period, we had a very big challenge on people having adequate ram for the Salah ceremonial activities. The ones that came to the market were extremely at the very high side, that most families could not afford to buy them. What are we saying at all? It is long time that we talked about artificial insemination. Admiral Mutali Nyako brought in the biggest nitrogen tank bank individually in Sabore farms to bring in since we cannot afford to wipe out the existing breed we have, so that we can start doing the AI, so that states, local governments could start understanding the need for us to change the looks of our breed, because the breeds we have will not take us anywhere. Now, we're talking about 1 liter of milk. That's not true. Our cows today give you less than 1 liter. A cow that will trek from Sokoto to Umahia or to Aba will not give you 1 liter. All that they would have used in giving you milk has been converted into energy. The only good thing about our cow is that our cow has the highest iron content in the whole world, because all his life he walks. He treks from Lagos to Kaduna, and he comes in from Kebbi to Safe. What are we saying about is that pinning down a strong national policy on livestock is long overdue, and we have to start it now if we need to. Then the livestock that are consumed in Nigeria is not concerned with what we provide. Everybody brings in livestock here. If our neighbors from Mali, from Bobo de la So, from Senegal, if they shut down their border in bringing in livestock into Nigeria, there is crisis. What are things we need to do here? Just like the professor in the research institutions have done here, getting our young youth to pick up programs in artificial inseminations, backyard breeding programs, using livestock to do the rehabilitation of those in IDP camps. When we are resettling people, at a point in time, Marite, Gambori Gala, Grizawa, and Biu has got very fantastic livestock. Where there are agricultural activities, there are livestock there to feed on what has remnants here. But what happens to ours? The Saminaka, Yarakaswa, Pambegwea being the biggest point for maize in Nigeria today, there are no any program designed so that the livestock can feed on the remnants of the maize here in Kaduna. We don't have those programs here. Sokoto were doing quite well in livestock in the 70s and late 80s, but today is a tale of ethnic struggle as far as livestock production is concerned. So AI is one of the things we need to do. Then we need to bring back what I call agricultural livestock support centers. Now, the Fulani man or the herdsman today inject, do inoculation by himself, building resistance in our various farms, because he doesn't see the station officers that will look after his mouth, foot, and food diseases. He does the inoculation himself. He builds resistance. The antibiotics that are brought in are not in any way working again in the livestock. When you go to our abattoirs, is a disease centers that if you see where the livestock are slaughtered, some of us today will not touch meat in our mouths. And then we pretend as if we're doing nothing, we're doing something, and we're doing nothing in totality. When you go to Transamadi, or you go to Digbo, or you go to My 12, and you see where our livestock are slaughtered, you ask ourselves, are we really telling ourselves the truth? Cows are still being moved on a truck. For an average trailer takes about 35 cattle. If it is Sokoto Gudari, it takes 30. If it is Balani, it takes 35. They all comes in from Megateri, and they comes in from Miadua. Most of the livestock owners, you pay them in safer, not in Naira, because they come in from our neighboring country, Cameroon and the rest. Everybody brings in here because they know that the only place where a full cow is consumed and no iota of value chain is taken away from the cow is Nigeria. When a full cow is being consumed, you've displaced 54 children from school sandal, because a full cow will give you 54 sandals for school children. The horn of a cow is used in making buttons, but ours, no, we burn ours. Is the best glue, customized glue for furniture making is from the bones of these cows. What have we done on our own? Between 1977 and 1983, a tannery company in Kano was paying for a Division 1 club in Italy. And we tell ourselves, what are the programs? Mr. President, my take in this is that Mr. President should cease to be the overseer in the oil sector. Let Mr. President take a new seat in the agri sector, because it is a high state of emergency. A nation that fails to provide good, adequate protein on the tables of its citizens is not worthy of calling himself a nation.
All right. Shadrach Madleon, thank you very much. Again, you've raised a number of points. Let's bring in Honorable Mohammed Tahir Monguno. You listen to the views already expressed, by all the guests. In terms of legislative approach to what is required to be done with regard to the specific issue we are talking about today, which is the livestock subsector, why does it appear that the lawmakers have not been fully apprised of, shall we say, this sense of urgency that is required, or the felt need that is required to turn around all of this, in addition to the value chain just articulated a moment ago by Shadrach?
Well, the National Assembly is fully aware and responsible and responsive to the yearnings of Nigerians, and as such, we are going to make laws that are going to move forward the livestock subsector. Because if you look at the livestock subsector, it contributes about 25% to our agricultural GDP and 5.8% to our national GDP. And Nigeria spends about $1.3 billion annually importing milk and dairy related products. So as a parliament that is responsible and responsive to the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians, we have to make laws that is going to move the livestock subsector forward, having regard to its contribution to our GDP, and having regard to the fact that if the sector is unlocked and the potential there intact, is going to create a lot of employment to our teeming unemployed youths in this country. So in that regard, as rightly pointed out by you, the issue of funding, budgetary provision, by law is that of the National Assembly to make a budget for all these research institutes. But as you know, because of the long years of military intervention in our body politic, the role of the legislature is not well appreciated when it comes to budgetary matters. Right now there is debate as to whether the National Assembly is supposed to tinker with budgets that are being submitted by the executive, or the budget should be fast, rubber stamped and fast as the way it is being brought. That is right now there is debate to that extent. So so long as the National Assembly is not allowed, or the role of the National Assembly in budgetary matters is not appreciated, then so long shall we continue to have this problem of funding and what have you. Because right now, as rightly pointed out by Professor Sharbutu, the research institutes are not well funded. If a budget is brought to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly in its wisdom decides to alter this budget and then increase the budget of this research institute, then they will say it's budget funding.
But there is a practical issue that Professor Sharabutu raised, and that has to do with not just the adequacy of the funding, but also the timing of the releases. Is this a matter that lawmakers may seek to intervene in and say, listen, look, it doesn't make any sense if research institutes are literally idle for the greater part, 3/4 of the year, and then near the end of the year, you make a release and then you expect them to surrender whatever left.
Yes, I very much agree with you.
What does this mean to lawmakers?
With regard to that issue of bringing out the budget of the agri sector from the national budget for early presentation to the National Assembly for possible passage early, I think there is need, as I earlier on told you, to collaborate with the executive arm of government, so that the executive will now bring the budget of the agri sector separately to the National Assembly, so that the budget of the agri sector will be fast early enough to commence within the rainy season, so that it will not be fast after the rainy season. As I told you earlier on, there is a need for Nigerians and indeed people in the executive arm of government to appreciate the role of the National Assembly, especially in a democratic dispensation, especially when it comes to budgetary matters.
All right, sir. I would like to thank you there once more. That may be an issue for conversation, for an issue for another day.
Yes.
You know, on the issue of budgeting. But if you look at the history of budgeting in Nigeria, whether during military or civilian regime, we've always had that you know, poor funding of not just the agricultural sector, but also the science and technology sector. As Tauko raised earlier on, we need to square up you know, science and of course culture to see how we can get out of this situation. Now, gentlemen, all the solutions perhaps that have been proffered here, or ideas that should be followed, especially according to Shedrack in Kaduna, ranching plays a key role here, because to introduce any technology, it has to be ranching. And now we have 415 grazing, you know, reserves in this country. They are not active right now, and of course, creating new ones is also essential to address this issue. Now, I want to go to Taoko once more. Now, what would be the remedial approach to this technological approach which you brought in here, which I'm very much concerned about, because without that, we are certainly going nowhere with any transformation in the livestock subsector.
Yes. Well, from policy to implementation, practice. I'm speaking practically now. For the past 4 years, I've been in rural areas with farmers and the Fulani herdsmen, working, trying to seek solutions. First, at the level of policy. If you have institute, my brother, Sharubutu, get your students from that institute and your lecturers, attach them to farms. Let local governments, state government, create small pilot farms. Move them there to work on farms. When they're on holidays, they should work on farms. If you're in the University of Agriculture, part of your curriculum should be farm work. That's one. Secondly, I'm happy that the present administration too, the Minister of Agriculture, Chief Audugbe, was speaking the other day. They are returning agriculture, universities of agriculture, to their basic work. You don't go and study education philosophy in University of Agriculture. So one area, return policy to the right places. Secondly, interconnectivity, health, environment. Look at the flooding. that's going to affect food crop production, especially in the Benue and Niger Trough. With the northeast upheavals of social disintegration, and now the attempt to bring back farming communities to life, you have that problem of food shortage. So how do you bring all these areas, agriculture, water resources, information and culture, health, environment, bring all this together? Then women organizations, the Ministry of Women Affairs, bring them into multi-sectoral, multi-ministerial disciplines, come up with solutions. India, how are they feeding their population of close to 1 billion? China, how are they feeding their population? Prioritize. We are not prioritizing. But I will conclude and say, look, harmonize all these areas of sectoral necessities. You, the National Assembly, get out of your National Assembly. Go yourselves to the villages. Go and see how your people suffer. Don't stay and make laws in abstract. Leave your agbada, go there with us with your bante, patari, short knicker, wear your boots, and let's get into the mud to solve the problem. And I think that is the practical way of using we cultural workers in small extension services for mobilization. Community theater approach can help bring all these things together to make the people own it.
All right, Ta Uko, thank you very much. Let's take reactions from our viewers now who have sent in their tweets. Mahmoud Haman tweets, you can't transform nomadic pastoralism to ranching practice overnight. It took the government of Nigeria years to establish ranching on Mambila Plateau.
Now, Tana Hanze, ranching is just the final answer.
Law Officer, it's unfortunate that in a bid to rear available cattle to avoid extinction, herdsmen and farmers clash in some areas.
Sani Michael Omokoji, to address this frequent attack, federal government should organize capacity building for both farmers and Fulanis for effective synergy.
And Victor Uyoswoma tweets, I agree that the way out of incessant herdsmen-farmers clashes is reforming the current archaic system of livestock production, and ranching is the way to go.
Nigeria, according to Inusa Adamu, you make laws of anti-grazing without incentives at one hand, and you want peace. Change begins with me and you do things rightly.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, government should address the decline in the water level of Lake Chad and make the area safe for grazing to address farmer herdsmen clashes.
Now, law says with ever-increasing population, livestock is speedily decimated via consumption. High-yielding species have to be sourced.
Najabi tweets, a nation that can't feed itself becomes a threat to its own sovereign existence. Let's grow our own livestock and process what we produce and sell.
Now, Mahmoud Haman says the greatest paradox in Nigerian livestock production is the refusal of the National Assembly to approve the bill on grazing reserves.
Again, Festus Akimboyewa, Nigeria's livestock industry urgently needs innovation. Government should bring farmers and researchers together to transform the livestock industry.
Now, Annie says, God bless NTA's crew for always being sensitive and proactive on the state of the nation, where the much talked about, where are the much talked about ranches?
Elijah tweets, the application of geographical information system technology for forest mapping as a way of surveillance and monitoring of all activities in the forests, especially in flashpoints, this is important.
Now, Hassan Labran, it's a welcome development if the federal government of Nigeria can go into the optimization of the industry. It will serve as a good employment and good source. Now, gentlemen, let's move further into this conversation. I'd like to come to you, Professor Garba Sharabutu. Mr. Shadrack said that if Nigeria stops the importation of livestock into this country, that we're going to have a serious problem with livestock consumption in Nigeria. Now you also talked about the breed that we need to improve in the kind of breed that we have. Shadrack also made mention of the fact that we also have good breeds here. Now, as a research fellow, would you suggest that we improve on our own local breeds to see how we can get something out of it? Or do you believe that we should maybe engage other nations in livestock business whereby we can have exchange of breeds in order to out of what we have?
Yeah, I think he was on point when he talked about the introduction of artificial insemination. Through artificial insemination, you will be able to upgrade your breed. You look for the qualities that are good in our own and the qualities that are good over there, and try to see if you can produce a breed that is adapted to this environment. But you see, the truth about it is that no nation will survive on intervention. The whole livestock sector is strictly dependent on intervention. The first livestock development program was a foreign intervention. Second livestock development program, it was an intervention, and you know immediately the intervention stops, the whole thing collapses. The National Livestock Project Department is this. If you recall the incidence of the avian influenza in 2006, without the intervention of the FAO and the World Bank, we wouldn't have been able to control it. Because for now, they have left us to ourselves, and the avian influenza continues to go. We have never sat down to target, minus maybe now that the Honorable Minister, and I think I sympathize with him, that he is trying to see what we can do locally in order to bring up. All along it has been intervention, intervention, intervention. And I don't think that this country, without a deliberate policy and a deliberate budgeting system, will be able to actually move out from the woods. That is one.
Yeah, Professor Shaributu, agriculture is not on the exclusive list.
Yes.
For purposes of allocation of powers amongst the various levels of government that we have, federal, state, and local government. Earlier you were talking about the shared responsibility of stakeholders. We talk about budgeting. There's a limit to what the federal government can do. Precisely. What have you observed in terms of subnational government intervention or subnational government interest in agriculture, in particular the livestock industry? What would you like to see state and local governments do in transforming our livestock subsector?
Well, as it is, my experience today is that the local government does not do anything. In fact, it's zero intervention as far as livestock is concerned. Because most of the clinics, most of the livestock service centers are all collapsed, and all of them have been under the local government. At the state level, it's a problem. You see, if the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has an umbrella organization, a body like the National Council on Agriculture, it involves the local government, the state government. But it's just a talk shop. By the time you finish everything, every state goes back after the jamboree and sits back without actually keying in. The normal thing there is that let us have a policy at the national level, and each state should be able to key into this policy. And I want to tell you that at the last meeting we had in Port Harcourt, virtually every sector of the Nigerian society, including the private sector, non-governmental organizations, were all carried along. And a communique came out, but this communique is yet to be implemented. That is one. Secondly, I want to also talk about this issue of regularization of agriculture in its entirety. Livestock is not regulated. Crop production is not regulated. So these clashes will continue as long as you allow everybody to do whatever he wants to do. We sat down here some times back and we said, look, this livestock business must be regulated. Regulated in the sense that you must know who are those that are involved. Let us have a good statistic, and then let us put rules and regulations, the do's and don'ts of livestock production. Is it okay for us to allow a juvenile to actually graze? Is it okay for us to allow animals to be grazing in the night? All these things must be taken into consideration. On the side of livestock, I don't know, most of us who travel on the road, you find out that people plant crops right up to the shoulder of the road. Now, you say that. Then, more so, somebody wants to come up and say he wants to regulate livestock, and comes out in the public glare to begin to pronounce that my state has no land for livestock production. I mean, all these type of things are not. So we must bring up regulations that are really geared towards curtailing the excesses of individuals.
I just want to, just before we go back to Shadrach in Kaduna, we'll be talking about ranching, the availability of arable land in parts of the country, several millions of hectares of land available. Have we tried to consider, for instance, the intervention of the Land Use Act 1978 into all of this, because it tended to have changed the land tenure system in the country?
Yeah, of course, this is one of the topics that was discussed. In fact, the key topic that was discussed before yesterday You see, the Land Use Act has made provision to say you can have about 500 hectares of land given to the... But you see, the concept of indigenization has bastardized the whole Land Use Act. Because people will tell you that you are not from my place, I'm not going to give you the land to grow agriculture. But however, you see, if a foreigner comes into this country and wants to establish a livestock farm, he will be given. But I can tell you that if a typical Fulani man now wants to get land for him to develop, you know, or a sort of an animal farm, it will be resisted. So the Land Use Act, if you take it in isolation, good enough, we'll be able to implement. But if you take it against the background of what is currently happening in this state, the Fulani man has become the most endangered species, endangered human being. The livestock is endangered. Endangered both by those of us who are practitioners as well as the farmers. Because the depletion of the national herd of the Fulani man has now become a source of the problem of this country. And when we say we are not going to intervene, the crisis will not stop. Because a typical Fulani man that has walked up one day to see that he does not have cattle, either because he does not have water and the animals have died, or we have not been able to fight, the next thing he takes to is any trade that can keep him in the forest. And he takes to kidnapping, he takes to stealing, he takes to wrestling. Because we believe that this is his own private business. And because cattle rearing, like people say, is a private business, so let us not intervene. If you don't intervene, he will not have the livelihood. And if he does not have livelihood, he will go into criminality. But I used to ask this question. If we want to take cattle rearing as strictly a private business, what of taxi driving? It's a private business. Are we going to say that every taxi driver should go and construct his own road in order for you to be there?
All right, thank you, Professor Garba Asharabutu. And let's return to Kaduna, to Mr. Shedrack, whom, of course, this will likely be your final contribution for our competition this morning. Now, where do we go from here? You know, from your own perspective, what is the next step to be taken?
I think it's the matter of urgency. We should look at the model we should copy. To me, I love the Ethiopian and the Brazilian model. The ratio of a cow to a Nigeria is 250 Nigerians to 1 cow. In Ethiopia, it's 54 people to a cow. These people have got more livestock than us here. And what have they done? Ranching is the answer. The ranching business in Nigeria is very, very possible. But again, the Bank of Agriculture will need to come in. There has to be a policy that shows the bankability of it. If we today, if we take out those who are taking cows from Nguru, or from Maibelwa, or from Taraba to Kaduna, who brings in cows, then you and I probably today will not buy. A kilo of meat is going for about 1,400 naira today, but I bet you that price is going to go up beyond this time around, beyond this cost we have. Can we please go back to having those designated areas? The gazetted ranch that we have in Nigeria are overtaken by human activities. They are no longer there. They have been built upon and all that, and that's what brought in over 280 people that died in Utonkom, Ihamufu, and part of Nwanune and all that here in Benue State. There are still clashes that is going on in Akukwedo, Uromi, and the rest people here. But if we finish discussing this here, everybody packs his books and we'll go and sit down. We don't discuss, we don't look at it here. Let private sector come in. The private sector come in. Yesterday, I heard that the Vice President has inaugurated the ranching police. Ranching police should be posted to various farms. But there are other things beyond ranching police. You need adequate water. You need good grazing systems. You need bailers. You need veterinary officers to go to these areas. We need the breeds. Which breeds are compatible to the region? The breed that the man in Ogoja will do, that's not the breed that will work for the man in Kebbi. the muturu, the short muturu can the African dwarf cow can do well in Ogoja, Bekwara, and Obudu, but that will not do very well in Sokoto, or that will not do well in Safe or in Bukuyum or Talata Mafara. These will need to, and then nobody will shave your head in your absence. You must sit down on the barber chair for your head to be shaved.
All right, Shadrach Madleon, thanks a lot. Very quickly, let's take our second set of tweets from our viewers, and then, of course, thank our guests and others who've been part of this conversation this morning. Omobori Owo tweets, Shadrach just spoke some hard truth. President Buhari should exert more efforts in ensuring that every aspect of our agric life works.
Now, Henrietta Alom says, I hope the distinguished House member is able to coordinate these tools to take back to the House for appropriate legislation. Why can't interested Bayelsa people, why can't Bayelsa people be interested in cattle rearing learn this trade from the Fulanese?
Amongbolahon Babs tweets, Nigeria is indeed a blessed country. We are just too rich in everything. Our bane of development is leadership deficit.
Now, Sunday Mala Ishiri, if Nigeria must improve its agricultural sector as a capital revenue and employment, there must be state of emergency by the National Assembly. Proper planning and impeccable execution of policies are critical.
All right, Cliff has this tweet. Let me be particular. What are we doing with the hides and skin from livestock reared by herdsmen? Then
Abo says the sustainability of the subsector must integrate value chain management to help national food security. Ranches can be sited near research institutes so that there is a seamless, collaboration?
Co-location.
Or co-location, all right, co-location between the farm and the gown.
Nick Anekwe tweets, now to get solutions to these issues of agriculture and in particular livestock, we must give more powers and resources to states so that they can solve their peculiar problems.
Now, Rume says, why are we still discussing about adequate funding? What has the budget been provided over the years be used for?
All right, now those are the second set of tweets that we are taking. We'd like to appreciate all our guests who've been with us. Shadrach Madleon, of course, a farmer, joined us from our Kaduna Network Center. Thanks a lot always for your insights whenever we've had you on Good Morning Nigeria. Okay, we also would like to thank Professor Garba Sharabutu, Provost of the College of Animal Health and Production Technology at VOM, that's in Plateau State. Thanks a lot, Professor Sharabutu.
Thank you very much.
For your insights. Ta Oko, Artistic Director and CEO of the National Arts Theatre and National Troupe. Thanks a lot always for your contribution.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you.
We also would like to appreciate Honorable Mohammed Tahir Manguno, Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Agriculture. Thanks a lot for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go over now to Kirian and then take our complimentary segments.
Now, Nigeria takes on Cameroon in the FIFA Afro Basket quarterfinals as goals continue to reign in the UEFA Champions League. Details of this and more with Victor Azu.
Good morning and welcome to sports. Nigeria